Here is Ernest Hemingway, our author of Hills Like White Elephants. He was born in 1899 and died in 1961. So when he was born on July 21st, 1899 in Cicero, which is now Oak Park, Illinois, Ernest Hemingway served in World War I shortly after and worked in journalism before publishing his story collection, In Our Time. He was renowned for novels like The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and The Old Man in the Sea, which won the 1953 Pulitzer. In 1954, Hemingway won the Nobel Prize. He committed suicide on July 2, 1961 in Ketchum, Idaho. So our story, Hills Like White Elephants, is set on a train station in Spain. It's a brief snapshot of a young man and a young woman named Jig, who are traveling through Spain in the late 1920s. Now, the story is told from the objective point of view. Nearly it's all dialogue, and you have very little narrative intruding. So our setting in a train station near the Ebro River and the hills behind is actually a real place in Spain, so we have a picture of it here. So clearly the young couple are traveling about, enjoying youthful freedom, and perhaps indulging a bit in the bohemian lifestyle. But there's conflict. Now, I have a bit of the story here. What do you see revealed in this exchange? The girl was looking off at the line of the hills. They were white in the sun, and the country was brown and dry. They look like white elephants, she said. I've never seen one. The man drank his beer. No, you wouldn't have. I might have, the man said. Just because you say I wouldn't have doesn't prove anything. So already we have conflict here. We're not quite sure why they're arguing, but they're certainly argumentative. So there's trouble in paradise. Jig seems discontented with their rootless existence. It tastes like licorice, the girl said, and put the glass down. That's the way with everything. Yes, said the girl. Everything tastes of licorice, especially all the things you've waited so long for, like absinthe. Oh, cut it out. You started it, the girl said. I was being amused. I was having a fine time. Well, let's try and have a fine time. All right, I was trying. I said the mountains look like white elephants. Wasn't that bright? That was bright. I wanted to try this new drink. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks. Yeah, seems like Jig is pretty discontented with what it is that they've been doing lately. Now, they're talking about the drink absinthe. It's an alcoholic drink that she refers to. It was reputed to have psychoactive effects. It was also reputed to be poisonous if overindulged in. Now, because of these supposed effects, absinthe became popular among artists and those who thought of themselves as bohemians at this time. Now, absinthe was also popularly supposed to cause hallucinations. So as we can see, the legendary effects of absinthe are still being touted even today. So the other posters you had from the previous times were around the 1920s as Hemingway's writing. Here's a more recent one. So what is the conflict between the two young lovers? It's really an awfully simple operation, Jig, the man said. It's not really an operation at all. The girl looked at the ground the table legs rested on. I know you wouldn't mind it, Jig. It's really not anything. It's just to let the air in. The girl did not say anything. I'll go with you and I'll stay with you all the time. They just let the air in, and then it's all perfectly natural. So here we have the man talking about Jig needing an operation, and he's showing himself as attentive, maybe even wanting to join her. But what kind of operation could he be talking about? You've got to realize, he said, that I don't want you to do it if you don't want to. I'm perfectly willing to go through with it if it means anything to you. Doesn't it mean anything to you? We could get along. Well, of course it does. But I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anyone else. And I know it's perfectly simple. So we do have a little bit of criticism here because we don't know much about the person behind the speaker. So the man identified only as an American is technically the villain of the piece. He's selfish, he's insensitive, he's an emotional bully, the eternal adolescent who refuses to put down roots or to shoulder the responsibilities which are rightfully his. Now his empty, barren lifestyle is summed up by the girl. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks. So more of the story. The girl stood up and walked to the end of the station. Across on the other side were fields of grain and trees along the banks of the Ebro. Far away beyond the river were mountains. The shadow of a cloud moved across the field of grain, and she saw the river through the trees. And we could have all this, she said. And we could have everything, and every day we make it more impossible. So the short description of the valley of the Ebro suggests something to Jig. It's an image of life's possibilities. So our critic generally agrees that the brown, dry, and infertile land represents a rootless, empty, and sterile life, like the one the couple is presently living, while the fertile land along the Ebro River represents meaningful and fruitful life they could have if they would not go through with their operation or the abortion. So looking at the title of the story refers to a white elephant. Why would that be significant? Well, white elephant is actually an English idiom. As the critic remarks, a white elephant in one meaning of the term is anything rare, expensive, and difficult to keep. It's a burdensome possession, an object no longer esteemed by its owner, but it does still have value to others. This is basically how the man now feels about the unwanted child. So we also wonder how this story is about imagination. Well, the two young people are at a time in their lives when they're free and independent and can travel and explore the world. This is a time when people often feel the world is theirs for the taking, and they can imagine an exciting future for themselves. And travel itself is often said to be mind-expanding. Seeing new places and experiencing new things can add to one's idea of the possibilities of life. So for the young man, having a baby clearly would be an impediment to the free and rootless lifestyle that he wants at the moment. As he tells Jig, "But I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anyone else." So is it fair to say that the young man cannot imagine having a baby at this point in his life? So let's look at Jig's viewpoint. So Jig remarks to her lover, "Doesn't it mean anything to you? We could get along." Now earlier in the story, Jig has an epiphany as she gazes at the fertile valley of the Ebro River. "And we could have all this," she said. "And we could have everything, and every day we make it more impossible." But what is it that they're making more impossible? A future together? A place that is something more than freewheeling journey from place to place? So clearly when it comes to the baby in question, Jig has more imagination than the young man. She can imagine a life with a child, while he cannot. All right, so what happens after the story ends? There's clearly tension between the couple as the story comes to an end. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "I feel fine," she said. "There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine." So then we have to question, what do we think will happen? Will she have the operation, and will they get over this little incident? Do you think they'll stay together in the long run? So he's asking her how she feels, and she says, "I feel fine," and then she repeats herself, "There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine." Is that a positive ending? Are they going to stay together? We're not quite sure. Will she go and have the operation about the child? We're not quite sure. Thanks so much for stopping by for Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants. If you want to hear more about Ernest Hemingway or other authors, please let me know down in the comments, and I would be happy to create more videos. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe.